Alright. Hello, everybody. Happy Halloween. This is the Dark Conservatarian, and this is my co-host so far, the Crusader, and we are on Strike Force News. Say hi, Crusader.
Sup everybody and happy Halloween.
Yep, and so before I go on any further, I don't know if I should lower my volume. Before I go on any further, I plan sometime soon on doing a live debate stream with Esoteric the Free sometime next week, and me and him were actually in the middle of scheduling. Originally, I was planning. He had brought up the idea of it being today, and then I told him that, hey, we're going to. But hey, I actually got Bible study on Thursdays, so therefore we did not schedule it for that. But ultimately, no Bible study today, so I thought, why not do a news stream instead? But rest assured, if Esoteric the Free ever sees this stream, we will have that stream. Just not today.
Yeah, your
But
mic's
anyway.
a little loud.
Alright, let me lower it a little bit more. So, the reason why I do that is because for some reason I end up being louder, or the person joining me on the call ends up being louder than me. A whole lot louder. Anyway, so what we are going to be talking about today on this news stream is Hong Kong. The Hong Kong protests, the protesters' alleged racism, and why it is that they are protesting. We're going to be reading about this from articles from both sides of the aisle, from both sides of this issue. We got South China Morning Post, Vox, Business Insider, and South China Morning Post talking about the history of the Hong Kong protests, and Hong Kong Free Press. And hello, Pumpkin Row, first person in the chat right now.
And Brandon.
Alright, and so as you all might have heard as of recently, actually the main reason as to why I wanted to do this stream, that really kicked me in the pants to want to do this, is because I keep on hearing all these allegations that the Hong Kong protesters are being racist, particularly towards freaking LeBron James. That all may be true, but let me just put right now, as a disclaimer, overall, in the grand scheme of things, I don't care about the Hong Kong protesters' racism, if it turns out to be true. That does not determine for me, ultimately, whether or not I'm for Hong Kong independence. Ultimately, I am for Hong Kong independence, or whatever it is exactly that they are protesting for, but that's just me as a layman saying what I stand for. From what I just get, the scant information that I get about it, I am on the side of Hong Kongers and their political side. But that aside, though, I do care about whether or not they're being racist. That earlier thing that I just said there, that might get edited out of context. But regarding
He doesn't support their racism, but he supports their freedom.
Yes, Hong Kong independence, the Hong Kong protesters' racism has no moral or ethical bearing, for my opinion, on Hong Kong independence. But I do care about their racism. I do not want them to be racist towards LeBron James or anyone else, for that matter. Any innocent, particularly any innocent parties on whatever it is that they're fighting or protesting for.
Yeah.
So, that disclaimer said, let's talk about whether or not the protesters really are being racist. Okay.
And Pumpkin Rose said, usually something like allegations of racism or similar things start, it just means that a or the government is trying to sabotage the movement.
That might be the case, actually.
I mean, with China, you never know.
Actually, I do not know of how PC that China gets. I mean, if they are really accusing the Hong Kong protesters of being racist, well, particularly over something frivolous, if it turns out to be something frivolous, well, then that'd be kind of surprising. But
The alt-right are a good example. They aren't ethno-nationalists until Richard Spencer was propped up as the face of the movement.
okay. But those things aside, though, let's jump right into this. So
Hmm.
this article right here, FYI people, might be a little bit biased against the Hong Kong protesters. Some of these articles we are going to be responding to as well as reading their information. So it's just response bait mostly. How Hong
Hmm.
Kong protest memes can spread hatred, racism, and patent falsehoods. Now, unless those memes are like saying this race is inferior or this race is superior, or throwing around a crap ton of racial slurs just willy nilly for absolute, well, in a rather hateful manner, I don't see that. Memes work by oversimplification and appeal to raw emotion. That does not
Okay,
say anything regarding racism. Sorry, JJ.
I said okay, and I, I fail to see the issue.
They are provocative. Sometimes they can be provocative, but not necessarily in a racist way. Incapable of complexities. Okay, that I will agree with. Memes are pretty black and white and most of the time unnuanced in their interpretation of political subjects. I mean, the amount of memes that I've run across being shared by my liberal friends on Facebook, they get rather overly simplistic and sometimes to the point of even straw manning people on the right.
Hmm.
And in Hong Kong's case, serve to fan the fires that divide. Meme sharers should think twice. Dear world, end Chinazi, please.
Shine nuts.
That's kind of funny. Okay, if you're calling somebody a Nazi, that isn't being racist necessarily. It's just equivalating you to basically being a fascist. Now, do I think that the Chinese are being like full-on Nazis about this issue? Maybe, maybe not. I do not know what exactly they're doing. I mean, if they're rounding up the Hongkongers into like death camps, slave camps, and whatnot, and well, I can only, I can
Actually, I
already.
think they are doing like torture if you speak out against them.
Okay, maybe they come very damn close to Nazis, but that aside, calling somebody a Nazi does not make you racist.
I
mean,
think it's just the Chinese government, though, that's the Nazis, not the actual Chinese.
yeah, I can concur with that point right there. Um, Although I guess if you're calling Germans Nazis, then one can go off on a limb that maybe that is slightly racist. But if a white guy is doing it to a German, it's yeah, never mind. I'm rambling. It is deeply troubling how quickly hatred, racism, and prejudice can spread online. Many memes circulating on Facebook, LIHKG, whatever the fuck that website is, or Reddit, for example, dangerously promote racist or biased behavior in Hong Kong.
Trust me, I'm on Reddit. I'm not on it as much as other people have, but I can tell you that a lot of them speak out against racism, and some of them are even some Bernie bros.
Hmm. Yeah, and also, I mean, if these memes are like in support of the Hong Kong protesters, well, then that's supporting Hong Kong independence. That's not really at all supporting their racism, unless it explicitly says so.
Yeah,
I mean, as far as I know, Hong Kong protests are not like focused around, oh, we want to separate ourselves from the Chinese or just because they're Chinese. But even then, like Hong Kong and Chinese, they are barely any different. That is like differing Ukrainians and Russians from each other.
it's mainlanders versus the rest of China.
Yeah, or mainlanders. I think China is considered the mainland. Like
Yeah,
mainlanders versus Hong Kong.
yeah, mainlanders versus Hong Kong, I believe. And I know a lot of the Chinese don't like the mainlanders because of the way they act, which I mean, a lot of them are pretty disrespectful and rude. But
Yeah, I mean,
um,
if anything, it's being prejudiced towards somebody because of their nationality, not because of their race. Because Hong Kong people and Chinese, like, they are very, very hard to distinguish from each other, racially speaking. So, I don't
yeah,
see the
very
big
much
tizzy
so.
over that. Adding misinformation to a very complex political and social issue. Authors and sharers of these memes appear not to care about the complexity of Hong Kong's situation, which we will probably read more into that once we get to these two articles in particular, but for right now, they only want to vilify the police, protesters, the government, or China. Take your pick. Those aren't a race. The police, protesters, the government, and China are not races.
Yeah, there's sects. Yeah, there's sects of the
Like
Chinese
China,
government.
yeah, China is a country, not a race. Well,
Yeah.
technically, if you're talking about the people themselves, I think one could it'd be more accurate to call them Asian, or something like that,
Yeah, or Oriental.
or Oriental. Of course, it is easy to vilify when you simplify groups of people or actions through memes. Memes most often, you know what? I need to remind myself to do this, but I'll do that later. I was thinking about sharing it on Discord servers. Memes most often designed to appeal to people's emotions, risk spreading misinformed hatred and racism. It is difficult for an informed argument to be expressed well through simple visual memes. In fact, simplifying an opinion into memes embedded with emotive images and words does not say much at all. You know what? Overall, I'm thinking that this this article is pretty boring, going on a non-issue. But let's see what Let's see what further ridiculousness and pettiness we can find, JJ.
I am up for that, for the most part.
Is this article just to whine about memes? Apparently, Pumpkin Row. Who likes to see images of scared children surrounded by agitated, angry police? Maybe it's because they want to be even just slightly nudged to being exposed to the truth of the matter? I mean, that's kind of the whole purpose of the memes. Like, say a person before they saw the memes, they probably don't care about the issue of Hong Kong. But after they see the meme, they probably do start caring about the issue of Hong Kong, damn it!
For real.
Most people do not. Okay, yeah. Ultimately, they do not want to see harm. But when you share the memes, the people sharing the memes, they want those people seeing the memes to be exposed to the issue. But stop a moment. How do we know we are not simply reacting emotionally to an image? It is a safe... There is a slight grain of truth to that, but that first sentence right there, that is just... Oh, man.
Yeah, that first I was like, hold on a moment, wait, what?
Yep. Yeah, take a little pause right here and just go on and share the freaking stream on Discord servers. Yeah, let my phone... Oh, wait. There it is. Yeah, let my phone... Oh, wait. Alright, 1 second. Do that in a few seconds. I'm not going to keep the audience waiting any longer. The problem... okay. It is a safe bet that memes of children being attacked by police will evoke strong emotions because this is far removed from most people's expectations of police officers. You know that the same thing could be said about the kids in cages regarding ICE and the whole immigration issue. You remember, JJ? Like a few months back,
Oh, yeah.
AOC and the rest were... complaining about those, and it turned out that one of the pictures was actually not in relation to modern day ICE detentions.
Yeah.
Now, the issue of ICE and immigration aside, that was an oversimplification, and even a falsehood in a few cases. I mean, I wonder, was South China Morning Post complaining about that then, or was it okay in their eyes? I mean, I'm not going to condone falsehoods being spread around, but I just the idea of memes being shared around at least gets people's attention to the issue at hand. Look at recent memes accusing the MTR Corporation of public misinformation over its vandalized stations, which people were quick to share to express their outrage, without thinking about how such memes are designed. As far as I can see, many of the videos prove nothing. And this article is kind of proving nothing too. Oh. Social judgment theory suggests that people make judgments about the content of a message based on how similar or different it is to their values or beliefs. When a message is perceived as being against a person's values, they may subconsciously exaggerate the difference between the position of the message and their own. This response happens when the message falls within an individual's latitude of rejection. The assimilation effect is just the opposite. When a message is received that falls within the individual's latitude of acceptance, the receiver subconsciously minimizes the difference between the position of the message and his own. Okay, I'm not looking for a big-ass psychology course. How long does this article go? Okay, not too much longer. Guess we'll finish it. It is understandable that people share memes to express their opinions on recent events in Hong Kong. Okay, that's not the implication that I was getting before, but whatever. It is a quick and simple way to express outrage at a perceived injustice. In fact, most memes circulating online are designed to align a message with the beliefs and values of a target audience. This is no different from print advertising or television commercials, and that is the problem. A meme may align with a person's beliefs and values, but it can only do so by evoking emotion and reinforcing biased behavior and opinions. The spread of memes on social media needs to be analyzed a lot more carefully. I don't care that much.
Alright.
I don't care. You probably did not see me right there, but I facepalmed right there.
Oh, I heard it.
Perhaps more importantly, more caution is needed before sharing them. Now, I will say that me personally, I do try to be more cautious when sharing memes, generally speaking, but I don't make a huge tizzy about the general idea of them daring to be shared around on the internet.
Exactly. I mean, sure, some areas got to be careful because some people react differently to certain memes, but to be careful of racism, there are very few racist memes, like really, like actual racist memes.
Yeah, like this interracial couple should not be getting hit up like this or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's even some memes that are meant to agitate the anti-interracial marriage people
Mm-hmm.
that I have actually run across. I'm trying to share this around.
Man, they'd hate my sister-in-law, my sister, and my brother-in-law.
Oh.
They'd actually hate both of them now that I think about it.
I will just say though that instead of complaining about the meme being dared to be shared, I will more than likely respond to the meme. Like there was like a little short series that I used to do. I don't do it so much now, but it's called Responding to Stupid Memes, of where I just respond to random, oversimplified, or even outright false memes that I see my friends be sharing on Facebook and whatnot. Okay. Still working on sharing around this stream. So, one more, and that'll probably be good enough for now. Alright. There are many errors of judgment in the messages circulating online. Memes, for example, often promote biased behavior. I don't know if I read that already or not, but whatever. Many of us are biased towards enhancing our sense of self by thinking that first, we see the world more accurately than others. Second, the groups we belong to are more desirable than groups we are not part of. And third, our truths about our social world tend to be correct. Now, there is no such thing as my truth or your truth. There is only the truth.
Yes.
Now, I will say that there is such a thing as my facts and your facts, like the facts that you bring to the table. Like, say, for example, I be bringing or Cold of Ham in a debate would be bringing up stats regarding stats and facts regarding like gun homicide rates to the table. Those are his facts that he's bringing, his stats. and then I bring facts and stats regarding the self-defense rate in America. Those are my facts and stats I'm bringing. But there's only one truth, the truth. And hello Night Shift. Hey Darkon, what weaponized autism? Excuse me. Hey Darkon, what weaponized autism are you taking down tonight? Talking about supposed racism, about Hong Kong memes, and Hong Kong protesters in general. Many of us are biased towards... oh, wait, I already read that paragraph. There are a few reasons that memes reinforce biased behavior. Meme authors and sharers often presume they see an event as it truly is and expect other rational people to share a similar view. Now, the freaking normies and people that are not so politically involved and researched, yeah, that's true with them. But I try to, like, keep myself on edge on whether or not what I'm sharing is factual or not. Mm-hmm. Also, Cult of Ham does something other than I don't believe you.
I mean,
okay.
he brings statistics and then he screams.
But enough about Chatsburg, though. Sorry, I don't want to bring him up too much. I mean, he's had his moment of his failure, and I want to leave it at that.
Yeah, that's fair.
There are a few reasons that memes... Many people generally prefer others of their own in-group while exhibiting prejudice against out-groups. This bias, common throughout the world, is occurring in overwhelming proportions in Hong Kong. Many memes on social media reinforce echo chambers. And, okay, that's with politics in general, dude. Hong Kong is nothing special in regards to echo chambers. Okay? Okay. Many memes on social media reinforce echo chambers and can stagnate freedom of speech.
What?
What? What the fuck? I feel like John Tron right there.
I mean, that is a literal what the fuck moment.
Let's read that again. Many memes on social media can stagnate freedom of speech. How?
That's funny.
I mean, I can understand if like a meme is like promoting the idea of censoring people, but the sharing of a meme is practicing freedom of speech in of itself.
Exactly.
Oh my.
If anything, memes should be spread to raise the freedom of speech.
Oh jeez. What would be? Oh man. You know what I think, Hong Kong or South China Morning Post? You are stagnating freedom of speech by criticizing the idea of memes daring to be shared. How about that? Now, you're not necessarily advocating for the restricting and even banning of sharing of memes, but still, what do you think about that logic, bitch?
I mean, they're not practicing what they're preaching.
Okay. As long as memes promote in-groups and out-groups, we will never have peace. Additionally, many memes reinforce a behavior where people focus only on information that confirms their beliefs. Okay. I will say that if you're like just throwing around talking points around in an echo chamber, that is not a stagnation of freedom of speech. It might be a misuse of freedom of speech, arguably, but that's not a stagnation of freedom of speech. I don't... God. Simpleton! Our social media... Well, actually, no, not even a simpleton. That's just pure idiocy right there, that talking point. Jeez.
Dumbassery.
I just lost a few brain cells. Our social media warriors are reaching a dead end. Okay. Are you talking about... I don't know. I'm not going to overthink that statement. We need to think more carefully before sharing memes to express our outrage. Calling out another person's bad behavior feels good, and some cognitive studies suggest that our brains reward us when we do. Duh.
Cool story, bro. Even though we already knew the story, but thank you.
You don't need to look up any studies to... Oh, man. I almost felt like bringing up a certain Chatsburg again, but you do not need to look at studies to know that. Like, no shit. When done in person, there may be physical consequences, so we choose carefully how we express our anger. Um, I'm
Pumpkin
going.
Rose said it best. Using of freedom of speech stagnates freedom of speech.
Yep. That's true. Oh, God.
True of what they're speaking of.
Oh man, SB just shared a meme in the SFN Twitter chat.
Hold up, you gotta send me the meme. You know I love memes.
Okay. But sharing of memes stagnates freedom of speech. Why would I do that, JJ? Get roasted, China Morning Post. Anyway, let me pull back up. All right. So, we try and get our facts straight. However, expressing outrage is less costly on social media. Well, no shit. I mean, unless you become at risk of getting doxxed or whatever. Well, actually, no. That is somewhat of a true statement. You're like behind your in your like cushy environment, not risk of being punched in the face by the person you disagree with. Whatever. People can be angry at someone they have never met. They can be angry at videos they see, regardless of whether it was taken out of context, and the physical costs of expressing that outrage is limited. More importantly, we need to avoid memes that call others Nazis, Chinazi, or cockroach. Okay. Fuck you. No, I'm not. I mean, I do agree that the term Nazi should be used a lot less, especially when they be calling Sargon, of all people. He's an idiot, I know people, and a bit of a narcissist, but he's not a Nazi. And, being called a Nazi-inspired fascist like I have. I mean, I do think that some of those words should be, like, used less, but completely avoid using memes, sharing memes that have those terms. No, depending on the context, I am going to share those memes. Thank you. Name calling is wrong. Well, tell me something new, but if my opposition is going to get incivil, well, then you can bet your ass that I will be uncivil as well, bitch. Racism is wrong. Yes.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
Prejudiced behavior is wrong. Yes. Using slurs flippantly creates divisiveness and is dangerous, unless it's a comedy skit. Because people may begin to use the terms to confirm fears and reinforce biases. As a result, fears grow and people begin to act out of emotion, not logic. Memes that use those hateful words do not help the situation. The psychology of Hong Kong's out-of-control protest movement. Please let us start thinking more carefully before sharing memes. The purpose here is not to express an opinion about which side is right. Okay, but I'm still going to presume... I'm still going to presume that you side against the Hong Kong protesters. The concern is how we are communicating our opinions online. Censorship is not the answer. Well, thank you for confirming that, but I do not know for sure of how much you believe in those words that you speak, South China Morning Post. Responsible online communication is. We need to be careful how we perceive and interpret memes and other forms of online discourse. Memes are often designed to evoke emotion, not share factual information or truth. I'm tired of watching good people spread hate. My breakfast was smarter than Sargon, says Pumpkin Row.
I mean...
You're not as smart as you think you are, Sargon. Who said... Oh, I think he might be quoting Richard Spencer right there. Pumpkin Row is.
Oh boy.
Well, as much of a jackass and an idiot that Richard Spencer himself is, he's not wrong right there. Sargon of Akkad really likes to give himself a big head, and sniff his own farts, as Loudmouth Reviews put it. They don't
Yeah.
believe those words at all. They absolutely want to censor people. I don't really doubt it, Pumpkin Row. I don't doubt it. Just seeing if there's anything else. Alright. Nothing much more in the chat. Why everybody is mad at LeBron. This from Vox.com. Now, obviously, we know Vox is slant, so, but let's go ahead and see what their opinion is, and, yes, respond to it, quite possibly. Excuse me.
More than likely.
Yes, I was quoting Richard Spencer. Of course, that's not to say he's not a dipshit, too, like you said. Yep. No, I wasn't trying to imply that you are a fan of Richard Spencer or anything like that, Pumpkin Row. But anyway, I don't know if that was what you were thinking or not, but just throwing that out there. Why everybody is mad at LeBron. LeBron James weighed in on the NBA's China controversy. Now it seems like everyone's mad at him. LeBron James, the NBA's biggest star, finally spoke, ever since Michael Jordan. Finally spoke Monday about the league's free speech crisis over the Hong Kong protests, and it didn't sit particularly well with anyone. The NBA has been in turmoil since October 4th when Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey tweeted support for the pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. All right, as Vox's Matt Iglesias previously explained. Chinese entities responded by canceling TV coverage of exhibition games being played in the country and pulling sponsorship with the Rockets. Well, people have the freedom to boycott as they please. That's my opinion. But
Yep.
Anyway, I just wanted an excuse to call Richard Spencer a dipshit.
Fair enough.
Understandable, Pumpkin Row. And by the way, Pumpkin Row, it's quite convenient that you are named Pumpkin with this type of day. Anyway, the NBA initially distanced itself from Morey, calling his statement regrettable. God. In what way? What immoralities are the Hong Kong protesters doing? As far as I know, it's China that is being the immoral one right here, and I wouldn't blame anyone for wanting to declare independence or whatever else from China. So, go ahead and fuck yourself. This, in turn, invited backlash from U.S. fans and politicians of all beliefs, who see themselves in solidarity with the protesters fighting for self-determination. LeBron's Los Angeles Lakers were one of the teams in China when the Morey story exploded. But for a week, James, the four-time MVP, three-time champion, and biggest name in basketball, said nothing, and some of his team's public events were canceled. On Monday, he spoke out via silver screen and roll. I think when we all sit back and learn from the situation that happened, understand that what you could tweet or could say could affect people. James said, we all talk about this freedom of speech. Yes, we all do have freedom of speech. The people in China do not, though, dipshit. Well, okay,
Yeah.
maybe that's being a little bit too mean, but still. But at times, there are ramifications for the negative that can happen when you're not thinking about others, and you're only thinking about yourself. More like Mr. Morey was thinking about the Hong Kong protesters, it seems, in my opinion. So, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, what's going on, says Memes of Destruction. And hello, Memes. We were talking about of how memes are apparently oversimplified and should not be shared around and stagnate free speech. Memes.
Nobody living under a government has freedom of speech, though. I mean, kinda. I mean, yeah. Even in the United States, we aren't as free speech as we could be if we had, little government.
Maybe for the modern day context, there's not truly a country that is like 100% pro free speech. with that context, I could agree with this statement. At Pumpkin, what the fuck? I had to apologize to Richard Spencer. My bad, says Memes of Destruction. Wait, what?
Why would you apologize to a racist, good-for-nothing shitbag?
What's up with that, Memes? I mean, I want to know the story of this.
What's up, True Grave?
He is white nationalist daddy, says Brandon, referring to Richard Spencer.
Fucking hell, of course it's Brandon that says that. It was fake news.
I created a meme of destruction of him, says Memes of Destruction. Okay, well, nice to know that you're doing your job, Memes. It was fake news, so by principle, one must apologize. Okay, so if it was a lie, well, then I guess I can understand the apology. But anyway, happy Halloween, my mortal enemy. Tim Horn is a baby back bitch who plays Pokemon. Real men play Yu-Gi-Oh, says Conundrum. Alright. And by the way, Conundrum, I don't know if you, saw on Discord, but I do have the Hangouts link if you want to join this particular call and commentate on the news. But if not, that's cool too. And by the way, check your Discord DMs because I want to get in on that stream if you go doing a burial of freaking Tim Horn. Anyway, but by the way, to everybody that is watching right now, I do plan on eventually doing a response video to Tim Horn's response video, to my response video, to his response video, to PragerU. Responseception, everybody. Anyway.
Pumpkin Rose says Digimon is better than Pokemon inherently fight me. I agree, Pumpkin Row.
I can agree mostly because Pokemon, they say their own names repeatedly. So
Doctor, bitch. Except I love Pikachu and I love Eevee, so.
Halftime. Oh god, Nate Volunteers sent me. He sent me a StreamYard link, even though I'm in the middle of a stream myself. Anyway, so continuing on with LeBron James' statement, we are almost 40 minutes into the stream, so we got to get a move on. I don't want to get into a word or sentence feud with Daryl Morey, but I believe he wasn't educated on the situation at hand. How do you know, Mr. James? Point to me a point of ignorance that was expressed by Mr. Morey. Please? Thank you. Otherwise, shut your lip. And he spoke, and so many people could have been harmed, not only financially, but physically, emotionally, spiritually. So just be careful what we tweet and what we say and what we do. Even though, yes, we do have freedom of speech, but there can be a lot of negative that comes with that too. So I can somewhat understand, I guess, where LeBron James is coming from. I mean,
I agree with that last statement. There are downsides, but overall, the good outweighs the bad.
He did say it in China, where he and his team could have potentially been arrested and whatnot. And, hello, Conundrum, how are you doing?
26, 15, 5, 25, 9, 19, 3, 15, 13, 9, 14, 7, 2, 1, 3, 11. What's up?
Did you just... you have a brain aneurysm?
Oh, I think he's spelling some words with
maybe
numbers.
It's Happy Halloween in letters or numbers.
No, he said 26 right there. 26 would be Z. So anyway,
well, I'm retarded, so I'm not about to use that.
And you're a furry.
This guy listing off numbers sounds like a homosexual.
You gonna take that, Conundrum?
What's that?
You gonna take that, Conundrum?
Well, what did JJ say?
No. It's Pumpkin Rose said.
The guy listing off the numbers sounds like a homosexual. Well, you sound like a transgender furry.
Oh, God.
Ooh, that's worse.
Oh, God.
Probably paps off to My Little Pony.
So.
Surprised at night.
Oh, God. True
Jesus
Grave.
Christ.
True Grave says so. In other words, the ass cancer continues. Yes, it does. True Grave. With Tim Horn is what we're both referring to right
My
there.
mom's a conundrum. Well, well, that's pretty funny because your mom says I'm great in bed.
Oh. Okay. Anyway, I don't.
Especially when I tie her up and whip her.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on. Conundrum. I am a transgender. I identify as a train. Okay, but anyway, putting aside the roasting, let's get on with the actual story.
Is that you identify as a train because you like guys running a train on you?
Okay, Conundrum, if you want to continue with the roast off, do it in the live chat, please, because I want to get on with the articles. I mean, it's okay to say some things in response to the chat verbally occasionally, but I don't want to consistently do it. Anyway.
All right.
If there's like any commentaries that you want to give out regarding the Hong Kong protesters and other articles that we are reading off right here, Conundrum, you know the rules. Interject whenever you want to and commentate.
Okey-dokey.
Vaguely calling Mori uneducated after the GM spoke favorably of pro-democracy protests earned swift rebukes from progressive online NBA fans and conservative politicians online. Why conservative politicians? That's surprising.
Huh?
By conservative, I think what they mean is establishment Republican types.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
So, if they double down on it, can we call it a double dribble?
Sure. Ding. James tried to clarify on Twitter that he had meant only that Mori had not considered the consequences of his comments for the emotional and physical safety of the teams and players who were in China when they were made. He wasn't trying to comment on Hong Kong and China. Okay, let me clear up the confusion. I do not believe there was any consideration for the consequences and ramifications of the tweet. I'm not discussing the substance. Others can talk about that. My team and his league just went through a difficult week. I think people need to understand what a tweet or statement can do to others. And I believe nobody stopped and considered what would happen. Could have waited a week to send it. Maybe there is something to be said that he should have just waited till they at least got back in the U.S. I don't know, but even then they probably would have still faced boycotts or whatever from China, so good on Mori for speaking out nonetheless.
Yeah.
James is under no obligation to comment decisively about foreign affairs. Okay, nobody is saying that he is. But he is the sport's greatest active player, a noted commentator on racial justice in America, and someone who has been outspoken about racism and politics in the past. Alright, James has called out President Trump for stoking racist sentiments and held a rally with Hillary Clinton during the 2016 presidential race. K. Thank you.
Okay.
Don't care. I don't care. His comments on China managed to anger both liberals and conservatives, disappointing progressives who have often cheered his comments on racial justice and feuds with the president, while proving useful social media fodder for conservatives who are already critics. Many of his progressive fans have Alright, sorry about that, everybody. Many of his progressive fans have certainly noticed free speech, and the cause of human rights seem to apply only in selective circumstances for the NBA. The online right, meanwhile, called him subservient to communist China, and Republican senators decided to take an opportunity to chastise James for the Chinese government's actions.
Darkon, how many times did I tell you, turn off your camera when you're adjusting your vibrator setting?
Damn.
Vibrator setting? Okay.
Yeah, when you were leaning over, I know you were pressing the button that for your vibrating dildo up your butt to go on a higher speed.
Okay.
Nice.
Whatever.
Nice.
Because China isn't the good communism, says True Grave. Yeah, people will call no true communism or no true socialism. Um, but
Just as how some people would say, if you make one feminist point, you're considered a feminist.
mhm.
So I'm a feminist?
Yeah, because you believe in equal voting for both women and men.
Hey,
How dare you.
We're the sexy sexy feminist. Oh right.
But I do understand of why people are chastising James for him like criticizing Maury for being supportive of the Hong Kong protests.
I mean, kind of deserves it.
Well, you know something? Maury should say to LeBron, the lie detector determined that was a lie.
Is that? Oh God, never mind. I'm not gonna read that. All right. The NBA had a tough week. This is like Senator Rick Scott replying to LeBron James. The NBA had a tough week. The million-plus Uyghurs Communist China has in re-education camps had a tough week. The people of Hong Kong fighting for human rights and autonomy had a tough week. You're right, at King James. People need to understand what a tweet or statement can do to others. Spicy. Why LeBron and the NBA catch so much heat over China and Hong Kong? I do say that is actually a legitimate response by Rick Scott, so good on him.
Yeah.
Why LeBron and the NBA catch so much heat over China and Hong Kong? The firestorm over James's comments neatly encapsulates the problem the problem with the NBA, I think is what they meant to type here, which generally wants to be seen as the progressive American sports league, has faced with the China crisis. I think you meant was faced with the China crisis. The typos are throwing me off here, people. Sorry for that.
All right, let's make this simple. Give LeBron James the Colin Kaepernick treatment.
I'd be okay with it.
Although one could say that he's like a better sports player than Colin Kaepernick, so maybe.
Okay. Oh yeah, definitely.
Maybe
LeBron's like the Tom Brady of basketball.
Fuck Tom Brady. Nick Foles for life, motherfucker.
Fuck Tom.
Even though he's with the Jaguars now.
Fuck Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes for life, motherfucker.
I mean, he's a better overall player than Brady, talent-wise.
But yeah, I will say that Patrick Mahomes is definitely better than Colin Kaepernick.
Oh, easily.
Every news story must mention that the league and its players have billions of dollars in business in China.
Oh yeah, the league of the NBA. It should be called the LBA, the Liberal Basketball Association.
That lends itself. Okay, as much as I don't like China, I don't know. If they are able to practice that sort of liberty of being able to boycott certain other organizations and businesses, well then I believe that is their right. So, sorry to say, Vox. I mean, NBA might lose some money, but who knows?
They already make enough money to make up for it anyway.
Exactly, and who knows? They might get a new vendor for speaking out for the Hong Kong protesters, for all we know.
Maybe Taiwan will sponsor them. I don't fucking know.
Some other organization that is owned by people that are a little bit more right-leaning or a little bit more pro-Hong Kong, not necessarily right-leaning.
Yeah, I want to go to the dollar store.
I do want to
get next time I go to the dollar store. I want to get some Singapore or Taiwan toothpaste instead of Chinese toothpaste.
Here. That
Nice.
lends itself to the unavoidable conclusion that free speech is conditional in the NBA up until it puts the money at risk.
That's just with companies in general.
I mean, this is kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, there are multiple facets to this. China, whatever organizations in China, anyway, have the right to boycott NBA, but at the same time, NBA has the right to dictate of what people working for them are saying and whatnot. Or they have, not necessarily that, they have a right to fire them if they don't like what they're saying. or undercut their salary or whatever else have you. So it works both ways.
Yeah, they should get rid of Winnie the Pooh and put Tigger in office.
Okay.
Okay. Apparently
You don't
somebody.
get it. The Chinese president looks like Winnie the Pooh. They should get rid of Winnie the Pooh and put Tigger in office.
Oh.
I know a lot of people get in trouble if they call him that, though.
That meme. Now I recall seeing that. At first, I was thinking that maybe you were that you just recently watched the Christopher Robin movie.
Yeah.
But by the
Fuck
way,
that.
side note,
Fuck that movie.
I liked it. I mean, it at least wasn't a shot-for-shot remake like freaking Sleeping Beauty or Lion King was.
Yeah.
The movie I want to see is Top Gun Maverick. That's America right there.
Well, anyway, before we get too much into movies, continuing on, the message to, as Tom Ziller wrote for SB Nation after the league rebuked Maury, the message to NBA players, coaches, and staff is that you can be as political as you want so long as it only offends people without real power to affect the bottom line. Silver isn't afraid of Trump's ability to hurt his business. Because so far, to a certain extent, Trump does not dictate what happens to the NBA and who can work with them and whatnot. So there is that certain freedom right there that they at least have. So NBA personalities can say whatever they want about him. Well, actually, here's the thing though. By extension of that statement, Maury was more criticizing the Chinese government, if anything. And he was showing support for the Hong Kong protesters. As far as I know, I don't see him criticizing the Chinese sports organizations that they are working alongside with. Well, I guess criticism of the Chinese government would make the Chinese government want to say, no, ban these people out of this country. So, never mind. There is I don't know. But his stance is different when it comes to Chinese President Xi Jinping, who could theoretically rocket the league right out of China if he wanted. That reality informs the NBA's response, and so far, Silver and the league look awfully bad. Well, ultimately, I do think that more people should speak up against China, regardless of business. Instead of being afraid of how China will hurt American companies' bottom line, instead we should free up our own market so that we can create our own bottom line and not be so reliant on other countries' companies as far as companies' bottom line goes. American companies' bottom lines go. Anyway, the NBA's courtship of China has an interesting and complicated origin. In the telling of this Ethan Strauss story for The Athletic, the bottom line seems to be that the NBA might be maxing out its market share in the United States. Okay. China is seen as fertile and potentially lucrative new ground. Here's my suggestion to y'all. Go to Europe. They do not have as much power to just go willy-nilly kick you out of the country as they damn well please like the tyrannical Chinese government does. I don't know. I don't think Europe has a particular interest in American football, but they might have an interest in basketball. Go to them. Or even go to India. I mean, India is of a similar population to China.
Actually, the English are somewhat like the U.S. football. I mean, they tried moving a NFL team over there years ago.
All right, so the NBA's okay. I already read that. China is seen as fertile and potentially lucrative new ground. A country with millions of fans who first came to the game following Rockets star Yao Ming. The basketball league certainly isn't alone. As Terry Wynn wrote for Vox, many U.S. brands struggle to have it both ways. They risk censorship from China if they are seen as critical of the country, but they could alienate their U.S. customers by kowtowing to an authoritarian government suppressing pro-democracy protests. So they equivocate. Anyway, but however fairly, more was expected of James and of the NBA. This is a player who is the subject of serious speculation about a future run for political office. Though this is not the first time a political crisis involving China has been a PR stumble for James. This is a league with head coaches like Steve Kerr. That's the same last name as Chris. As Chris. Jeeps Creeps. Proudly outspoken on domestic issues and often against Trump, but who have hushed up over Hong Kong. Strong majorities of both parties hold unfavorable views toward China, according to the Pew Research Center. Getting squishy on China and free speech isn't usually a winner in America with progressives or conservatives. The latter, long angry with James for his barbs at Trump, simply saw this as confirmation that Braun is with the communists. But many of the former are disappointed too. This was a star in a league they had come to expect a little more from. Alright.
I wouldn't call him a communist, but I would say he's not pro-free speech.
Yeah. What was that? What was I gonna say? I mean, okay. I was hoping to see from that article all the comments made towards LeBron James by the Hong Kong protesters, of him supposedly being called an ape by them or whatever, on Twitter. Or at least that's what I've been hearing vaguely on Twitter. I don't know for certain, like I haven't seen the tweets myself, but I was hoping to like see the tweets calling him racial slurs. But no, they did not cover that part, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm surprised Vox wouldn't cover that, because Vox would jump all over that like Carlo Mensa in a gay orgy.
Exactly, conundrum.
I like that reference.
Alright, so, anyway, there's a little bit of debating that is going down slightly in the chat, everybody. I'm not going to try to pay too much attention to that. This from Business Insider. Hong Kong demonstrators called a Chinese-American journalist a yellow thug and attempted to stonewall her reporting. So this is probably where the racism allegations are going to come more into play, because so far both of these articles did not go talking about the racism allegation against the Hong Kong protesters. It was talking about supposed implied racism by people who share memes, and LeBron's comments, just purely his comments regarding this whole issue, and comments on Maury's comments of the issue, more specifically, not the comments made at him by the Hong Kong protesters. Jia Yang Fan, what? Is that literally his last name? Fan? Jia Yang Fan, a staff writer at The New Yorker, has been faced with a barrage of racist inquiries and epithets while covering the Hong Kong protests. Excuse me. Although, it's kind of like if I was to call Conundrum a cracker, though. I mean, you got Asians calling other Asians racial slurs. I mean, is it really that much racist at that point?
Unless you're self-hating, then
Yeah. Which I kind of highly doubt that with the Hong Kong protesters. Demonstrators in Hong Kong have been protesting for 16 weekends. First about an extradition bill with China, but now against police brutality. Maybe that's what I ought to research up more specifically, is the extradition bill. Perhaps these next two articles will go into that, but anyway. But now against police brutality, as the sometimes violent demonstrations wear on, some Hong Kongers' anger towards the Chinese government is apparently getting channeled into xenophobia towards actual mainland Chinese people. Oh god, xenophobia. You know, phobia and other accusations of bigotry gets thrown around so much, it's hard for me to like take those types of accusations on the surface that seriously. Like, explain to me.
Xenophobia, the fear of xenomorphs from aliens. God, we got to get the predators after them. The Yautja.
Yep, exactly. And of course, it's totally logical that people have a phobia towards the xenomorphs. Fan was born in China but moved to the U.S. as a child with her mother. She shared on Twitter on September 21st that being of Chinese descent and speaking Mandarin has attracted vitriol from passersby and protesters. One called her a fucking yellow thug. Okay. Again, refer to my earlier comment. It's like if I was to call another white person a cracker. Like, is it really that big of a deal?
Or in my case, calling another, person of Native American descent redskin.
Hmm. Many cast doubt that she was actually American, quizzing her on the demands of Hong Kong's protesters and U.S. legislation. They suspect I'm a commie agent, she said in a tweet. My Chinese face is a liability, she wrote in a different tweet. Just got asked if I'm from U.S. and am a reporter why I have a Chinese face. Okay, if people are asking that, are you from the U.S. just out of randomness, well then, I guess it is slightly racist. It's like if I was to ask, what's a good example? Chris Kerr, if he's like from, well, actually it depends on the context. If you're asking what country a person is from. But if you're like walking up with the high suspicions that they aren't from the U.S., well then, it is kind of just a little bit racist. Like if I suspect that Chris Kerr is not from the U.S., despite him clearly being born in the U.S. Why I have a Chinese face. Okay.
I have Chinese face.
She shared a video of two demonstrators demanding to see her press identification business card and passport as a hostile mob demonstrated feet away. Okay. I say that people don't really need a press identification, or by natural rights, they shouldn't need a press identification to be able to report on something. If they're a freelance reporter, well then, yeah, fuck yourself. I'm gonna talk about this issue nonetheless. No press identification needed. My Chinese face is a liability. Just got okay. That's just rereading the above paragraph. Notably, fans said she didn't get the same treatment when she covered the protest with white reporters last weekend, and she didn't see a single white reporter get interrogated. Well, that's quite odd. I do not know why that would be, because if they were to go up to the white reporter, call them a cracker, and all that other crap, well then one could almost say that it's racist. I mean, I have a little bit more of a stricter definition when it comes to racism. Like, it depends on what their beliefs are more than their words.
Yeah.
But that's just me personally. It make more sense if they were going up to the white reporters and calling them a bunch of crackers and you call them racist. That makes more sense than if you have yellow people calling yellow people yellow thugs. I don't see that as very racist. Sorry. Just don't. But maybe the reason why they did not approach the white reporters the way they did is because inadvertently and just coincidentally the white reporters were pro-Hong Kong protests. So therefore, obviously they would not get as much hostility from the protesters.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote in a tweet, "Not one white reporter in press vest around me, grilled and surrounded and interrogated and subjected to hostile mob. It's slightly scary, humiliating, and unsettling. But Hong Kong, excuse me. But Hong Kong, I'm with your fight for freedom. I believe in you. Please understand that my yellow face and Mandarin are not the enemy." Okay, well, glad that she got that clarified up. So, maybe she is pro-Hong Kong, like she says. I'm just going to give her the benefit of the doubt on that. That adds an extra layer that it does not make sense as to why they would be approaching somebody that looks pretty similar to themselves. You know, Hong Kong citizens and Chinese-looking people.
Maybe they thought she was part of the Chinese government or something like that, or Chinese press that
Yeah,
wanted to stop.
I think they were just being a bunch of jackasses and rather overly assumptuous about what her motives are. I don't think it has hardly anything to do with their skin color and whatnot. So,
Yeah, more than likely it wasn't.
but she ultimately and just automatically goes for the whole racism thing, even
which,
though
I mean, it's very close-minded.
even though the Hong Kong protesters themselves are pretty much of her own same skin color and whatnot.
Hmm. That's
Um,
like me claiming a Native American was racist to me for saying that I am red-skinned because I have red skin.
Anyway, oh man, you're gonna get my stream taken down for saying Redskins so many times. Oops, I just said it myself.
It's sanctioned by the NFL, people.
Anyway, Fan was not immediately available for comment. Now, some people in black staring and pointing at me. They suspect I'm a commie agent. Entirely different experience than my last weekend on Frontline with white reporters when protesters came up to shake my hands. But isn't this what we are fighting for together? Freedom from discrimination and equality? Okay, so apparently beforehand they were nice to her, but then later on they were mean to her. So I think it's just a different group of Hong Kong protesters that are being jackasses.
Yep.
Xenophobia against mainland Chinese residents has long been a problem in Hong Kong. Okay. What xenophobia exactly? Tyrannical dictatorship? Communism?
I wouldn't say xenophobia. I think it's mostly just how a lot of the mainlanders act. Or how a lot of the mainlanders act.
Okay, okay, never mind. I was just curiously looking at the chat for a second there. But anyway, what kind of xenophobia are you talking about? Are you talking about differences of ideology, of where that the Hong Kong protesters do not like people with communist beliefs coming into their country and trying to influence it? Well, no shit. I mean, if that is the definition of xenophobia right there, well then I guess xenophobia did nothing wrong. But if we're talking
I'm
about...
okay with xenophobia if you hate communism.
Yeah, if it's purely ideological, if they're saying, I disagree with your ideology, I hate it, and I highly dislike you, or whatever. It's the same thing with me and JJ, like, disagreeing with somebody who's, like, an extremist Sharia law believer. You know, people from the Middle East and whatnot.
Yep.
I mean, is that xenophobia as well? Apparently, if that is what this article is getting at. But let's see what they mean by xenophobia, if they explain that anyways. But the ill will is growing as Hong Kong's struggles against the Chinese government and protests have exploded into massive and sometimes violent demonstrations. Some of our outright racism has been transformed into native xenophobia against mainland visitors, though we deny it's racist because mainlanders are Chinese too.
Yeah?
South China Morning Post columnist Alex Lowe wrote in a 2015 piece, "We have more bigots among us than we care to admit. The path to change first requires at least recognition of the problem, but we are not even there yet." Okay, so they don't explain the xenophobia. That's a pity. But I cannot imagine the supposed xenophobia, quote unquote, being anything more than pure ideological disagreement. And if that's what you're calling a xenophobia, well then, fuck you, Mr. Business Insider writer. Anyway, this again from South China Morning Post. History of Hong Kong protests, riots, rallies, and brollies. Hong Kong has never experienced a fully democratic government, but that has not stopped people trying to make themselves heard. I wonder of how their government actually works, because I generally hear that Hong Kong is one of the few countries in the world that has one of the highest economic freedom indexes in the world. I'll just say that. Public protests in Hong Kong date back to British colonial rule and have evolved from the bloody riots of the 1960s into the recent protests of up to 2 million people marching. For what stoke the violence is what I have to ask. I mean, are the police being brutal, first of all? I would say that they have a right to defend themselves from police brutality in that regard and whatnot. of course, I would have to know the full context, but anyway. This year in stark contrast to the usually peaceful demonstrations held to coincide with the July 1 anniversary of the handover of Hong Kong from Britain to China. A separate group of activists stormed the Legislative Council Parliament building. There, they trashed the chambers in protest over an extradition bill which they feared would make people in Hong Kong subject to China's legal system. Yeah, that is pretty legitimate reason to be protesting right there, because China is pretty dictatorial with its economy and other shit, like their persecution of people of certain religions. Like I read about them persecution people who merely believe in Islam, and whether or not that be they actually believe in Sharia law. Is there anything in the chat that is relevant to the issue at hand?
No, it's mostly about abortion.
Abortion and argument over government between Conundrum and Pumpkin Row.
Yep.
You doing all right there, Conundrum?
Oh yeah. My view on abortion is let them have the abortion. They'll live with it for the rest of their lives. It's the perfect type of hell for them.
Oh god. I'm not going to make this into an abortion argument.
I know.
Yeah.
My view is, I think let them have it. They have to live with that. They have to live with that for the rest of their life. Why should I care?
Anyway, faulty logic, I say, but anyway. Prior to this, Hong Kong protests captured the world's imagination with viral videos of students blockading roads in the Admiralty District while doing their homework. During the pro-democracy umbrella movement in 2014, and more recently a video of demonstrators partying like the Red Sea to let an ambulance pass. Okay, well good for them that they be not blocking ambulances, unlike Black Lives Matter did at one point.
Good job, BLM, you retards.
There's literally a video that I had made in one of my older videos. This was one of my first 20 videos that I did. So that's how old it was. Actually, it was still while I was still living in my mom's house, or in my parents' house in general. That I made this video, and it was like a clip of BLM protesters intentionally blocking an ambulance. It was fucking disgusting. July 1 handover anniversary. By the way, if anybody is curious, the name of the video is Do All Lives Matter to Black Lives Matter. Search it up on my catalog if you want to check it out.
Quick answer, no.
Apparently not, if they're blocking ambulances. Wah, wah,
Oh, yeah.
wah. July 1 handover anniversary. Large-scale protests have been held on July 1 every year since 2003. The anniversary of the handover has become an annual opportunity to vent disaffection with the government and call for increased democracy and other political causes. This year's was the largest to date and involved atypical scenes of chaos and vandalism. Okay. Alright, if anybody has anything to say about the,
Black Lives Matter shit.
No, if anybody has anything to say in the chat about the issue at hand here, otherwise I'm going to ignore all the debating about abortion and over, government. No battle, I think this might be relevant. Pumpkin Rose says, no battle took place since the government decided this was fine and nobody else has a say in it. The real battle is starving the government of resources so that it can't literally dismember people if it has collapsed. Okay, I think that's the general talking point. It's just a general talking point that he's repeating of SOs, and not specifically about China and Hong Kong. Okay. Anyway, number of participants in July 1 rallies. There's the chart right there if anybody wants to look at it. The Public Order Ordinance, which regulates public meetings and processions, it was first enacted in 1967 to crack down on the leftist riots against British colonial rule, which I condemn. That is like a restriction on freedom of expression. It outlawed any gatherings of 3 or more people without police permission.
What?
Yep, apparently pretty authoritarian action right there.
That is really fucking authoritarian.
Uh, okay. Um, Pumpkin Horse says, well, that was the conundrum, but that's cool, Darkon. Alright. But if you have anything to say about China or Hong Kong, go ahead and say that. Otherwise, I'm not going to be reading anything about the debate that you're having with Conundrum in the live chat. In 1995, it became much more liberal following the enactment of the Bill of Rights Ordinance based on the United Nations International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. I don't think it should really be based off of the United Nations International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, because I think the UN considers healthcare to be a human right according to the UN, the United Nations Constitution, or whatever fuck document it is. Yeah, so I don't care about United Nations, but anyway, if they really did enact a some kind of Bill of Rights, well then, good on them, I guess. Since 1997, public gatherings of more than 50 people or processions with more than 30 protesters have to tell police 7 days in advance and receive a notice of no objection. Number of police order events since 1986. Oh boy.
Again, very authoritarian.
You shouldn't need to get police approval in order to hold a protest. The moment
Yeah,
that
especially if
becomes
it's peaceful.
the moment that becomes a thing is when that freedom of speech is on a steep drop.
That's when you need to start fighting back, getting weapons involved.
I mean, particularly if the police are going to be saying outright, no, you're not allowed to commence on this protest or that protest.
Yes, get your weapons ready, because that's when you'll need to start, fighting for your freedom.
Oh yeah.
So Lord of Cancer's in the chat. He says, at the Dark Conservatarian, if you ever want to see a real good representation of the UN, just watch Team America World Police. I haven't watched that little puppet show, but that's some that I think I should add on my movies to watch list. Anyway, Years of Defiance. Click on the dots to explore a 53-year timeline of protests that helped define Hong Kong. Okay. Anti-extradition bill protests. Alright, here we get into the juicy stuff. The catalyst for the current protests was the Hong Kong government's decision to amend the current Fugitive Offenders Ordinance on the pretext of the ongoing Chan Tong Kai case. Okay, that's another thing to Google up because I don't know shit about that. Chan is accused of murdering his girlfriend in Taipei, but cannot be extradited to stand trial in Taiwan because the law does not allow Hong Kong to transfer fugitives to mainland China and Taiwan. Well, yeah, that doesn't really make much sense. I mean, it's not Hong Kong's responsibility to be dealing with Taiwan's criminals.
I mean, isn't Taiwan its own country, or is it not? It's really confusing.
Technically, if I was to look at a map, Taiwan is, according to the borders, its own separate country from China.
And I know the Chinese really don't like that, though.
And if people want to explain to me that they are actually a colony or something other, a province of China in the same way that Guam is a province of the United States, well then go ahead and correct me on that. But anyway, on June 16, up to 2 million citizens took to the streets to protest against the amendment bill, which they believe would destroy the firewall between Hong Kong and the mainland, where fair trials are not guaranteed. That's not surprising that fair trials are not guaranteed in China. Opponents range from pan-Democrats, lawyers, and businessmen to major foreign countries such as the United States and Britain. Critics argue that Hong Kongers or visitors in the city could be victimized for political reasons or be prosecuted for crimes committed inadvertently. I cannot think of an example as far as inadvertent crimes committed. Anyway, in response to the massive demonstrations on June 9th and 16th, June 9 and 16, the Hong Kong government suspended the extradition bill with no time frame for its reintroduction, but maintains the legislation's intention to plug the legal loopholes is still valid. I mean, if it's still under consideration, if it's not being enacted yet, well then that's good. But if it's still under consideration, well then I would highly encourage protests, Hong Kong. I would highly encourage it.
I would too.
Mind the gap. Comparison between crowd sizes according to organizers and police. Okay. Failure or success. The success or failure of a protest is hard to measure since some events form part of a larger movement that may affect change further down the line. Kind of in the same way that Black Bloc is associated with Antifa. Sorta. Except not the same beliefs. Well, Antifa and the Hong Kong protests don't have the same beliefs. That's what I'm meaning. The idea in the following graph, however, is to visualize how many of these protests achieved their goals in the immediate aftermath. Star Ferry ticket price increase, yada yada yada. Perception of freedom. The graph below shows the public opinion program survey conducted by the University of Hong Kong from 1997 to 2019. In the phone survey, respondents are asked to evaluate the extent of the freedom of association and demonstration in Hong Kong. 10 indicates absolute freedom, 0 indicates absolute lack of freedom. The markers indicate ratings when significant events protests took place. So, apparently, overall, people are still considering it to be over 5. I don't know why they would really... I would suggest like a mute yourself conundrum if you're going to be like rustling around like that. I mean, unless you got something to say, keep yourself muted, please.
Sure. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Just further notice. I would say
How
that.
longer is this article anyway?
You know, I'm going to check. Although it's not that long overall. Oh man, I think it's mostly graphs.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Or at least this portion is, anyways.
And I actually have to go through a stream to check the graphs.
Yeah, or you can like check the article for yourself, as I will be linking these articles in the description box below. In the description box below after the stream. Something in the chat that I was laughing at a bit. Anyway, we're probably going to just keep on. We're almost done, so let's go on. In the anti-extradition bill campaign, protesters have developed a guerrilla-style movement in addition to the traditional marches. What? Guerrilla-style movement? Like, are they actually killing people? Are they actually killing Chinese police?
Wait, what is the definition of guerrilla, just in case?
Typically, when I hear guerrilla, I think of, like, warfare. Actual full-on warfare.
Yeah, guerrilla warfare did pop up, but guerrilla. A person who engages in irregular warfare, especially as a member of an independent unit carrying out harassment and sabotage.
Yeah, I think guerrilla style might be a little bit hyperbolic, South China Morning Post. I mean, unless they are actually
being
actively...
aggressive, radical, or unconventional. I don't think that's what protesters are doing.
Yeah, as the next article will be explaining that they are peaceful. I mean, maybe there are some people in the Hong Kong protests that are being violent, but overall, is the organization...
That's a fringe minority.
Yeah, but overall, are they being, like, extra aggressive as opposed to peaceful in an untraditional manner? I'm not so much convinced about that. So, again, guerrilla-style movement, that is hyperbole. Without clear leadership, activists... Okay. I heard you rustling your paper in the background there, by the way, JJ.
Sorry about that.
Without clear leadership, activists discussed strategy on popular online forum LIHKG and coordinated through the encrypted messaging app Telegram. Instead of staging mass sit-ins, they now moved quickly from one place to another. On June 21st, protesters picnicked outside the government headquarters in the morning, moved on to block entrances to other government department buildings in the afternoon, and besieged the police headquarters in the evening. Explain.
They might want to give an example, because besiege usually means they're invading and being very hostile.
Yeah. Like, did they, barge through the doors and start killing or at least physically assaulting people and whatnot? Like, I don't know. This contrasts with the mass sit-ins of the umbrella movement, which ended with a robust backlash when the public tired of the constant inconvenience. Click on different parts of the 2019 protesters' body to see how the protesters' gear differs from 2014's Occupy activists. Okay. You know, I'm not going to do that. That's going to take too long because that is taking a long ass time to load up that. Anyway. Hong Kong extradition law, the current process and what will change under the proposed bill. That might offer a little bit more explanation as to why they are protesting, but that's extra reading. I don't know if I want to, do that because it's already almost 10 here in Kansas.
Yeah, it's 9:48 where I'm at as well.
And you know what? I think I am going to stop here with this article. Like I said, I'm going to have this article linked down below in the description box if you guys want to see it. Check after the stream in the description if you want to, read it for yourself. Anyway. So finally, okay. I will give some credit to South China Morning Post for being fairly unbiased. Well, I don't know. Maybe they had a slight bent in this article against the Hong Kong protesters, and they supposedly say that they don't have a anti-Hong Kong bent in this article, but I don't know. Anyway, but finally an article that is outright pro-Hong Kong. So this will be a bit of an easier read right here, everybody. This from Hong Kong FP, which I'm going to assume that FP means free press. Hong Kongers are more than just the world's most polite protesters. Now this might be a little bit too biased towards the Hong Kong protesters, but anyway. By the way, there's the bodies that I was talking about off air, JJ. Hong Kongers are more... okay. Over the past week, international media reports on the Hong Kong protests have been saturated with pictures of destroyed shop fronts. Some have denounced protesters' increasingly ugly tactics, mimicking the Hong Kong police force's condemnation of rioters' wanton destruction of the city. Just a few weeks ago, Hong Kongers were lauded as underdogs bravely facing down an authoritarian regime. Why the shift in tone? Interesting. I think there are two main reasons. First, international media outlets have always been enamored with Hong Kongers as the archetypal, I don't know, that's a weird word right there. Archetypal peaceful protesters. During the 2014 pro-democracy umbrella movement, multiple op-eds focused on participants' politeness and orderliness, marveling at how they would always clean up after themselves after marches. Early reporting of the ongoing protest movement also marveled at protesters setting up their own recycling bins and wielding cardboard shields against riot police. Gonna need more than cardboard, I'm just gonna say that.
Riot police for... Really, they're sending out riot police for peaceful protests?
You're roboting badly, JJ, by the way. Don't know if you hear it.
Am I roboting now? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Did my shit cut out?
Okay, Pumpkin Rowan Conundrum, calm down in the chat just a little bit. I'm not going to absolutely dictate the chat, but that's my piece of advice right there.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
You sound all right.
Okay, what I was trying to say is they're sending out riot gear-filled police against peaceful protesters.
Yeah, it doesn't make that much sense. Although,
That is way overkill. I mean, especially considering they have tear gas,
if you're
weapons.
if you're going to send like police in general, well then fine. But riot police, like that is like one step a little bit too far in my opinion. Like, if you are suspecting that there's a high possibility that things might get violent in a protest, which, by the way, everybody, there is always a possibility that a protest can get violent. So I would not blame anybody for being for the idea of having a cop or two or a few being on site to at least monitor things, but not to dictate things. Just monitor to make sure that there is not any violence going on. But freaking riot police, unless they are like carrying blunt objects that they can like bludgeon people to death with, heavy objects, Molotov cocktails and other shit, I don't see the need for riot police, for crying out loud.
Yeah, seriously, that is way overkill.
Okay. Alright. The effect of this idealization is that once people engage in forms of militant direct action, such as targeted vandalism, they no longer fit into stereotypical images of how a Hong Kong protester is supposed to act. Western audiences who previously lauded us for our peaceful tactics now condemn us, because they are more invested in their fixed projections of who we are than understanding why we act the way we do. Yeah, for example, like focusing too much on the alleged racism of Hong Kong protesters. At the root of this is also racism. Okay, here we go. The insistence on seeing Hong Kongers as passive and docile objects rather than active political subjects. Okay, I think that... Never mind, they were talking about racism thrown towards their way rather than racism that they be throwing. Supposedly throwing. Second, once Hong Kongers' methods of protest become more radical, they begin to resemble the kinds of protests that Western governments suppress at home, like Antifa, for example. And I would fully condone the suppressing of violent protests by Antifa. No apologies. Like Hamburg a couple of years back was practically burned. Half the city was practically half the city was in flames because of Antifa a couple of years back. The chant "No rioters, only tyranny" does not resonate as much with these audiences because it forces them to take seriously the ways that the same language of rioting is used to clamp down on the grievances and protests of marginalized people of color in their own communities. I'm starting to lose my voice, by the way. One of the principles of this anti-extradition bill movement that has now morphed into one against police brutality and for democracy is no division, no condemnation, no severing ties. No severing ties. So, I guess technically they aren't fighting for Hong Kong independence from the Chinese government. They just don't want to be put under the full-on Chinese jurisdiction as far as their law goes. Anyway. The emphasis on... I mean, either way is worth protesting over. I mean, especially being against the idea of being put more under China's jurisdiction. But I would even go a step further than what the Hong Kong protesters are going at. Be for independence. Like, protest for full-on independence from the Chinese government, I say. Anyway, the emphasis on solidarity this time around is a reaction to the umbrella movement and its aftermath, when disputes between factions led to widespread disillusionment and apathy towards Hong Kong politics. What is important in this statement is that it refers not to ideas but to people. That is, no one is disposable in our movement, and we have to talk through our disagreements, no matter how difficult it is. And there's Starbucks being torn down, so...
Wait, Starbucks being torn down? I like that.
Being smashed in.
Nice.
Returning to the topic of vandalism, a big debate on renovations and decorations has been raging on Telegram groups and LIHKG threads. What does LIHKG stand for?
Hold up, let me look that up. LIHKG.
Yeah, LIHKG. I can assume that HK means Hong
I've
Kong.
seen a lot of what I think are Chinese characters, so I think it's a Chinese or at least some form of Asian social media platform. Because I cannot read a single one of these because I do not know Chinese or any form of Asian language.
Oh, you're coming up with a whole bunch of results in Chinese writing? In Asian
Okay,
writing?
Okay, I'm gonna go to the Wikipedia. It's a multi-category forum website based in Hong Kong. Oh, okay. It's a forum.
Okay, so apparently it's a type of website based in China. Social media, I guess, or something.
Yeah, mostly Hong Kong.
Some frontline protesters argue that targeting specific shops and chains is a deliberate political act. For example, protesters have smashed up Starbucks storefronts because the chain's Hong Kong franchise is owned by Maxime's. Okay. That I will condemn. Like, why do you have to smash Starbucks?
I mean, what? Unless they're like promoting the government trying to silence you. Why the fuck would you destroy someone's you know buildings and
but
their
even
company?
but even promotion of restrictions on freedom of speech. As much as I want to say fuck you to anyone who does that, I don't think that violence or damage of your
True.
property is deserved in that area.
Yeah, even then, it's still not justified.
Some frontline. Yeah, in this area, I will say that you're just about as wrong as Antifa in that area if you guys are doing this, and you're just not making yourself look that good to the people who are anti-Hong Kong, but also to me too, as somebody who is overall supportive of your movement, of your message, of the political beliefs that you're fighting for, Hong Kong.
Destroying property like that is completely unnecessary.
Yes. In September, the daughter of the Maxim's founder claimed at the United Nations that children are exploited to participate in the movement.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I don't think children should be purposefully dragged into this. I mean, if a child wants...
Children should not be pushed into political beliefs at all.
If a child wants to participate in this, well then that's fine, but if they are being practically dragged by their parents, well then no, I stand against that.
Yeah, let the child make the decision, not the parent or guardian.
Alright, but apparently they don't explain that in further of what's actually happening. Or yet,
Yikes.
anyways. Yet. Protesters have also vandalized MTR stations because of the perceived collusion between the MTR and the government, particularly after riot police besieged Prince Edward Station on August 31st, and MTR refused to release CCTV footage of the attacks.
What?
I only believe Hong Kong protesters should destroy government property. That would make a little bit more sense, Axum. I mean, whatever government organizations are working to, like, extradite Hong Kong more into the tyrannical rule of Hong Kong, well then it's more understandable that way than that they be vandalizing privately owned businesses like Starbucks.
Yeah, don't be destroying like third-party members' buildings. Or people that are completely uninvolved in general.
Mm-hmm. Others have called on frontline protesters to exercise caution. I mean, this is... Okay, I want to, like, slow down there. This is kind of mirroring Antifa in sort of a way. Of how Antifa will be for punching Nazis. I mean, I'm not going to necessarily condone the punching of Nazis themselves, but what I am definitely going to condemn is the idea of punching people who are falsely accused of being Nazis. They are dragging an innocent party when they do that. Just like how freaking the Hong Kong protesters are dragging in Starbucks. Innocent party. in their fight here.
And that HK, whatever other building they said won't show the CCTV.
MTR MTR refused to release CCTV footage of the attacks. So, yeah.
Ew.
I don't know what
Yeah.
MTR exactly stands for.
I'm gonna look that up. MTR.
It might be a news group or something.
MTR. Hold up. That does not.
I'm not
look-
exactly perhaps certain.
MTR. What does MTR stand?
Alright. Others have called on frontline protesters to exercise caution, if only because vandalism may cause international opinion of the Hong Kong protests to sour. Like mine is right now. Apparently, I mean, sorry, Hong Kongers.
Apparently, MTR is a tourist thing.
Okay.
It's the mass transit railway.
Hmm. Well, if it's a privately owned organization, well then I'm sorry, but I don't think that they should be like vandalized either.
It probably is, but then again, it might not be because you know how China is.
Yeah. Hong Kongers are keenly aware that their continued survival requires building alliances with powers that can support their fight for human rights and democracy. But nowhere is there condemnation of vandalism. Only continued attempts to understand and contextualize. What's to understand about vandalism of Starbucks? Yeah, because Howard Schultz is totally a passionate anti-Hong Kong guy, which I do not know of any comments that he might have made about Hong Kong.
Even if he is, first of all, it's an American company, so what the fuck are they gonna do?
And yeah, by extension, going towards Antifa. Yeah, because Howard Schultz is totally a passionate Nazi, even though he's running as pretty much a centrist in the Independent Party for president. Underpinning the debate is the general principle that has guided the movement, that protesters will not sever ties with one another on the basis of particular people's actions and choices. If it gets extreme enough, I think you should.
Mm-hmm.
We afford each other, like if actual blood is on people's hands, like cold blood, murdered somebody in cold blood, that's when you should like start distancing away from them slowly, or at least punishing them.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people in Antifa should do.
Yep. We afford each other generosity and understanding the grief and anger that leads to particular acts, because we share a common experience of living in a de facto state of emergency. We also understand that in the spirit of Bewater, our protest tactics have to be flexible and target all of the structures that oppress us, whether that is the government or the capital interests that prop up the government. This is not to say that we cannot condemn the nativist tendencies of particular violent acts. We must reject all attacks on individuals that are based on the simple fact that they are from the mainland. I can agree. I mean, this even if like a Chinese citizen agrees with the idea of extraditing Hong Kong, I don't support attacking them or anything like that. We must remember that the enemy is not mainland Chinese people, but the Chinese state and the Chinese and Hong Kong elite who benefit from its repressive rule. Okay, so Hong Kong Free Press is being rather unbiased, it seems. They are for the Hong Kong protesters' goals, ultimate goals, but is stating against their practices, or at least the minority of them that end up being violent and vandalistic, if vandalistic is even a word.
Vandalizing.
Yeah. Attacking individuals is not only counterproductive, here, Antifa takes some lessons here. This is basically, the actions being explained right here are the mirror image of you. It is also fundamentally contrary to the values we are fighting for. a fair and just system where we all have equal rights to political participation. With all of this internal reflection on the part of Hongkongers in mind, if Western audiences' sympathy continues to be contingent on Hongkongers' fulfillment of their fantasies of peaceful protest, this should give us some pause. It may also be more fruitful to find allies who understand that violence is simply a means employed in a particular context to achieve particular aims. That rather than condemning the violence of particular individuals and acts, we should turn our attention to the violence of the state and the police that creates the conditions for such acts to occur. So, slight grain of truth to that, although I kind of wish that some more of these fights would be explained. This is something that I need to like more research into. Like, we're coming to the end of the article here, so let's finish it. And perhaps instead of trying to justify or even simply explain our actions to people who are more invested in their ideas of us than in understanding the reasons we have resorted to these tactics, we should dare to demand greater empathy and real solidarity in the face of a far greater tyranny. End of article. And that's the end of all the articles. And I do gotta say, I got to do more research on this issue, everybody. Do more Strike Force news streams about this, because this is quite a mixed and heated discussion right here, and it's easy to get lost regarding what is happening in Hong Kong.
Yeah, things aren't just black and white. It's very, very shades of gray, like how the real world is.
Yeah. And I will intend on trying to keep an eye out for more articles about this. So, maybe sometime next week. Next week I will be, God, I can't believe... Oh, now I remember what next week I'll be talking about. Next week on Strike Force News, I will be talking about California's power outages. Like, apparently on Don the Plebs server, you know, Two Plebs Talk News, JJ?
Yeah.
Yeah, on his Discord server, people are talking about power outages, like intentional power outages happening across California. And that's something that I want to research more into. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if that's actually happening, but I just want to be talking about it and raging at it, you know?
I mean, it's California. What do you expect?
Yeah. So next week I'll be talking about that. I'll also be talking about New York's minimum wage law, or recent minimum wage raise that they done that I hear about. They got a $15 minimum wage just like Seattle did. And we all know that Seattle had like slight negative effects regarding what happened after they...
The minimum wage goes up, prices of everything goes up.
Yeah. Although there was no reports of that necessarily, but there were definitely reports of people's hours being cut and even people being laid off up in Seattle, according to USA Today. So that's something that I have to research up about New York. That'll happen in next week. And maybe I'll talk more about Hong Kong as well. Or, no, I'll make it a point to definitely talk more about Hong Kong. So, rest assured, people, I will try to keep up to date about this if articles come across my desk. But, final commentaries regarding this racism. If, from the looks of LeBron James' comments here, like, if there's more comments that he has made, more aggressive comments being made by him against the Hong Kong protesters, well then somebody send me the article, because so far I do not know about it. All I know is what Vox is talking about. Maybe they are committing a lie by omission, quote unquote, by not mentioning certain other statements that he's made, but I don't know of them. But from what I so far know of LeBron James' comments, he does not deserve to be called racial slurs by the Hong Kong protesters. I will say solidly right there. Like, LeBron James' comments are rather milquetoast and not very personal towards the Hong Kong protesters, simply said. So, I know that I'm not going to say outright that I think that the Hong Kong protesters are, yes, definitely a bunch of hateful bigots, but they're definitely being jackasses if they're calling him a bunch of slurs and whatnot. I mean, do they actually believe in lynching black people or whatever?
Probably not.
segregation and whatnot, that would be when I would solidly say that they are racist. But you all know my opinions regarding racism and slurs, that it's people's beliefs. That takes far greater priority over what racial slurs they say, determining whether or not somebody's racist. And if they like blurt out a slur every now and then, like these guys are, but ultimately their beliefs are that they believe in racial equality, legal equality in particular, well then I say overall, they aren't really bigots. So, LeBron is China supporter, says Axum. Well, maybe he is, but I still don't see really the justification. He needs to go back to... Oh, God. Pumpkin Row in the chat says he needs to go back to his Nigloo. Pumpkin Row.
You saw the picture of that, didn't you? Igloo, Nigloo.
Yeah, I know. Racist jokes for the win. If their response got media coverage and it was likely never actually said. Okay, well, I don't know. Anyway, any final comments that you want to give off, JJ?
I support the Hong Kong protesters, but I do not support some of their actions.
All right. And Conundrum, get off of your arguing of the live chat for a second. And what are your final comments regarding this issue?
All right, LeBron James sucks Hillary's taint, and he's a cocksucker. China, get rid of it. I want Taiwanese toothpaste and Singapore toothpaste. If that means if I have to get rid of Chinese food, yes. Even though I love dogs sometimes, and cats.
What?
Also, Tim Horn. November 5th. Remember the 5th of November. That's the day I'm gonna roast your ass really good.
I'm sorry. You were saying Tim Horn?
Remember the 5th of November. Tim Horn's gonna be roasted all over that day.
All right. I'm going to marker that, and if you're planning to like look at and respond to his 1.5 hour video, in part, anyways. Count me in on that.
And who's this Pumpkin Road guy? He doesn't realize that I'm a nihilist. I don't believe in any forms of government. I don't trust the government, and I think anarchy is the stupidest route to go.
Anyways, let's move on.
Pumpkin Row is like one of the more confrontational subscribers of my channel, just to put it that way. I mean,
confrontational! I love those types. You know why?
But that's not that's not necessarily to say anything negative about Pumpkin Row, but it's
Pumpkin
whatever.
Row is an overall good dude.
All right, as long as he knows getting an argument with me, I'm just gonna stall him for time, and it's no point in arguing with me.
Oh god.
About government and shit.
I will say that I do highly appreciate his abortion.
Pumpkin, baby doll. I don't think anarchy is stupid. I love anarchy. I love chaos.
Conundrum.
Wait. Conundrum.
I just think a clean slate. Conundrum. The world.
Anyway, you kind of interrupted me there. I was trying to speak. But I was just going to say that I appreciate his opinions on abortion. That's what I'm saying. I mean, this might be like overly pandering to him, but it's whatever. And anyway. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this issue, and, yeah, about Tim Horn. Keep up to date on that. I do plan on doing an edited response video to that video sometime, but if you do plan on doing a stream, I am interested in that, if I'm available, Conundrum.
Oh yeah, the Order of the 66. Tim Horn's gonna finally get roasted and buried.
Alright.
I'm gonna burn him at the stake.
So,
he's gonna be medium well, and it's gonna be well done.
Pull up OBS, and so, alright. And this has been Strikeforce News, everybody. I'm the Dark Conservatarian, and these are my co-hosts, the Conundrum, and JJ, aka the Crusader. So, see y'all later. Have a happy Halloween, as we are fast approaching late in the night, and, good night, God bless, see you later. Bye-bye.